Hello, audience, and welcome to Real Books Don't Have Batman.
Because they don't.
I'm Frank Duran.
I'm Deshawn Vasquez.
And today is our first webisode of Real Books Don't Have Batman. So we're going to talk about we've got two segments. We got Batman Origin Story, and then we have what to read in the New 52.
And in Marvel Now.
So we'll start off with Batman Origin Stories. So the thing about Batman Origin Stories is that they're a dime a dozen.
They're everywhere. Even more so than Superman, which we talked about earlier.
I mean, Superman's origin is integral to who he is, but Batman's origin propels everything that he does. So that's really the reason why they do put it in every comic, but at the same time, it's a little bit of an overkill.
Yeah, not every comic has to have a flashback of them getting shot.
Yeah, exactly. Because we've seen it a billion times, and it's just like, great. Yeah.
So much so that, I mean, we've seen the origin so many times that they're doing it again soon. This is Batman #0. It's just a short little story before he became Batman, and now they're going to expand it into 11 issues.
Called 0 Year.
Yep.
Which, I mean, I'm excited about because, I mean, it's Scott Snyder writing an origin story, and he says he's not going to remake this, Batman Year One, which, for most people, this is either
my favorite,
or it is in their top 10, like me. It is not only your favorite, like, Batman origin story, it's your favorite
It's my favorite Batman comic.
Favorite Batman comic. And, I mean, that's what's cool that Scott Snyder decided that he's not going to remake this. He's going to do his own thing.
He's a fanboy. He has that respect.
Which is great because if you tried to screw with this, a lot of people would be extremely
This holds the standard. It's Batman inexperienced before he knows what he's doing, and more experienced Batman knows exactly what he's doing every night he's out. This one is inexperienced. He bleeds. He gets shot.
And the thing is, it's a beautiful book. That's what really sells it. There is Frank Miller writes, and the art is absolutely gorgeous. The colors, the moods. It feels like you're reading a noir film, but with Batman. And I think it really sells it, and really, it's one of those comics that you just, if they've never read comics before, you just hand this to them and they go, you stop reading comics after this.
So sometimes you just need to be smart. David S. Goyer, who wrote the Nolan trilogy, when he was writing it with Nolan, decided to take elements from Year One when they did Batman Begins.
Which is quite the like stirring pot of all the Batman origin stories.
It's funny because the first time I had seen Begins, I liked it very mildly. But now that, as the years have gone by, every time I watch it, I like it more.
Especially with the completed Nolan trilogy is over, it's interesting to watch Batman Begins because of all the references they're making in Rises. I think they connected those films extremely well, and I think this movie is enhanced for it. And I was really upset when people were like, were confused when Dark Knight Rises came out because they thought that Dark Knight Rises was a sequel to Dark Knight, not the third in a trilogy.
Yeah, some people, the harsh truth of Begins is that sometimes it's kind of forgotten, which is funny. I mean, it did well at the box office, not that well, definitely not as much as Dark Knight or Rises, but it kind of gets a little forgotten now because it's overshadowed by its two sequels. Which,
I mean, The Dark Knight is my favorite film of all time, so, I mean, there's reasons it gets overshadowed.
Either way, this is so good that they're going to reboot Batman again eventually. Don't do the origin again.
No, not at all.
We've seen it.
I want older Batman when they reboot Batman. I want him exactly in his prime. I just want how they did it in the New 52, where they were just like, hey, screw origin stories. You've heard it a billion times. Boom. And they just dropped you into the action. I really love that. So now we got to go back to what you were introduced to Batman with.
I was introduced to Batman by the 1989 film, the first Tim Burton one. I was introduced by that. I watched the movie a bunch of times on VHS. That VHS was probably worn out. And from there, I got into the animated series in the 90s. And from there, I jumped on to reading the comics.
89 is pretty great with... I mean, the way they do their origin story is extremely different because it is introduced in right before the third act.
Yeah, right before the third act starts. Where there's just like, he's sitting, he's thinking, the Joker has just challenged him openly to the public, and he thinks about it, and he has a revelation because he has a flashback of his parents being murdered, and he realizes that Jack Napier, who later became the Joker, he is a jerk, who later became the Joker, was the man who killed his parents.
Which I love. That's one of my favorite Batman origin story things that's not exactly canon, but it is one of my favorite like parts of the origin, that Joker is part of making who Bruce Wayne is and who he becomes. And I mean, the Batman is who makes the Joker who he is.
They've essentially created each other.
I
and
love
it is a nice dynamic, even if it isn't canon.
Yeah.
In canon, Joe Chill was the man who killed their parents.
Yes, which they do in Batman Begins, which I really gave them credit for just going with Joe Chill. What I was introduced, well, my favorite Batman origin story has to be Mask of the Phantasm. Mask of the Phantasm is probably my favorite Batman animated anything. It's the first Batman thing I really owned. I got the VHS and I watched it continuously. Like it was just like one of those things that I always had, I'd put it on as a kid and you just kept watching. I love it because they're able to weave the Joker as Jack Napier into the love story that Bruce Wayne is dealing with at the time. And it's great to see all those elements work together and weave together to come out to this final showdown with Batman, the Phantasm, and the Joker, all at an amusement park that gets blown to shit. So it's really quite the cool story.
And it is a perfect extension of the animated series, which is also very good.
Yeah.
So...
the Batman animated series, did they ever they've touched on the Batman origin.
They had like brief like instances where like I remember I think in one episode where he's infected by the Scarecrow fear toxin, where he goes back to thinking about when they died. But they never really did the legitimate origin until they got to Mask of the Phantasm.
Which is great because who needs more Batman origin stories? I mean, as much as we love talking about it on the show, there's so many of them. Who needs them? Like, everyone knows the story. No one's confused at what happened to Batman. No one's like, wait a moment, did his aunt and uncle die? No. Did he live with his grandparents in Smallville? No. Come on, people.
His parents were shot.
It's really easy.
He dressed up like a bat. End of story. No superpowers.
So, Batman's our favorite superhero. Hands down, we obviously named the show after him. And, so the origin story is really true to who he is. And it's great to have a great one, but don't beat a dead horse.
Yeah. Like I said, don't want to see it in the next reboot. I don't want it.
All right. So now that we just finished up our talking about all the Batman origin stories, we're going to go right into our Marvel Now /
New 52 sort of discussion. What to buy, what you should read.
So we'll go right to that. Hello, audience, and welcome back to the show. This is Real Books Don't Have Batman. We are doing a segment right now on the what to read during the New 52 and the Marvel Now. Now, the New 52 started last year, and Marvel Now started less than 5 months ago.
It's been about 5 or 6 months.
Yeah,
it's been like half a year.
So those were two new events that renumbered the entire series. So it was a big deal. Like a lot of comics that were on the 700s, all of a sudden were just like, zoom, back to one. And that means that it's a lot of stuff you can pick up to read. Now, a problem with that is what is good out there? What's even worth picking up? So we'll start off really quickly with what we think is best in the Marvel Now. Now, we're not huge Marvel fans, but we do read some Marvel. He's the Marvel guy here, Andrew. So let me ask you, what do you think is the hands down best Marvel Now series?
It would actually be a toss-up between two series that have actually recently just started. Uncanny Avengers is really top-notch right now. It's offering great art, fast-paced entertainment. It's getting away from Marvel's typical everything has to be 100% in jeopardy, like this has to be a completely world-changing event. Now we're getting more into classic Avengers stories, and we're getting a nice cast of Havoc being added to the mix, and Scarlet Witch coming back, and Rogue joining the Avengers. And cool. But otherwise, I would actually have to say Nova, who my pal is behind me. We're only a couple issues in, but story has been fantastic so far. It's tying into Guardians of the Galaxy nicely, and the art, great.
It ties into Guardians of the Galaxy? Like, because I'm reading that. That would be one of my ones that I would suggest to pick up.
Gamora and Rocket Raccoon have come to Earth to find Nova's father, who was a Nova. But cool. He's dead, so they gave him the helmet, or he found the helmet, and they want to recruit him to help them. Nice. Because they need the help of a Nova, but he's the only one left. And Rocket Raccoon is not too happy about that.
I would guess so. He's not happy about much. But I would say that my favorite one would either be Superior Spider-Man or this Thor comic right here.
Thor, God of Thunder. God of Thunder.
Thunder.
God of Thunder is the one I read in store. It's the only one I actually will look up on comiclist.com when it's coming out and make time to read it in store.
I mean, definitely. It starts off so epic. Like, there's 3 different Thor plot lines happening at the same time, all facing the same villain. That alone makes it intriguing, and it's worth picking up. I would definitely think so. Now, one of my favorite titles, but is obviously the most controversial, is the Superior Spider-Man title. Now, your guys' thoughts on Superior Spider-Man?
I keep telling you when we actually record the podcast that every issue tends to be interesting and interesting and interesting with the occasional, I like this one. That's how I feel about it.
And you, Andrew?
I'm the person who took Peter Parker's death personally when it first happened. It hurt me on an emotional level, but so far, Dan Slott has been beyond amazing. Superior, even. If we're going to be dropping Superior like he loves to in that book.
Yeah.
100% must buy. And he keeps escalating it even further to make you really get sucked into the drama and intensity of it.
Yeah, I mean, issue number 9 comes out next week, and they're going to deal with Peter Parker actually being inside of Doc Ock's brain. And I'm excited to read that. I mean, this show's probably coming out after this issue comes out, so audience will probably already know. But I mean, I'm super excited. It seems like an awesome issue, and hopefully they'll close the door on Peter Parker. Because I mean, as much as it hurts to lose Peter Parker, I just kind of want him dead. If they're going to use him at all, just dead, and then just Doc Ock. I wish they just went full out Doc Ock instead of being like, look, chance Peter Parker may be alive. Maybe.
He'll be back, though.
Yeah, I mean, of course, Peter Parker will be back. They'll find something. They'll just be like, look, another dimension, Peter Parker.
I mean, you have to keep in mind that this will be the world's first reported Parkerectomy, so it may not be 100% successful.
You had to mention that word. I hated that so much at the end of the issue.
I mean, Marvel Now is a great startup, but what really got me into reading comics on a monthly basis is the New 52. And there's tons of comics I want to talk about New 52-wise that are just, they grabbed me and they had me reading from day one. So the first one up is Animal Man #1. I wasn't expecting this to be good, but this was on the recommended slot in Newbury Comics, and they were like, no, you need to read this. And
you had told me before we had both started buying comics that you had read it for a bit and then you stopped.
Yeah, I got to like the 5th issue and I was telling myself I'm not going to pick this up anymore because I kind of wasn't understanding what was going on. Animal Man is a horror family. Yeah, you just heard me. Horror family comic.
It's a horror comic with a family dynamic.
Yes, it's not for families. It's about a family, and it is a horror comic. There's some scenes where you're like, holy crap.
I mean, look at the cover by itself.
Yeah, just blood coming out of him into a bunch of animals. This is, I mean, the thing is, the whole series just got better and better and better. Rot World came in, and now we're dealing with the fallout from Rot World, and it's still interesting. I mean, still holds my interest.
Yeah, and it turns you into a Jeff Lemire fanboy.
Oh, yes, that too. Do you read Animal Man?
I have not read the entire series. I've been reading like $40 worth of comics for the past almost 15 years of my life. So when the New 52 first happened, I was very skeptical about it. So I came in late to Animal Man, especially, for your reason. Who thought Animal Man was going to be worth anything? I have read the first arc and the beginning of Rot World, and I would have to agree that it's pretty solid. And for such a lesser-known character, it's definitely worth reading.
Yeah, it's kind of a must-read if you're going to pick up New 52, for me at least. So, I mean, the podcast is called Real Books Don't Have Batman, so this list wouldn't be complete without some Batman.
It's the best of Batman. There are, how many Batman books do we have now?
4.
4. Batman, Detective Comics, Dark Knight, Batman Incorporated, and, Batman and Robin, so 5.
Yeah.
Read the one that just says Batman on it. It's the best one. Scott Snyder, who's a relatively new writer when it comes to Batman. He did a Detective Comics run, Black Mirror, before DC rebooted.
Which was good, but he didn't work on... He worked with Dick Grayson as Batman, not Bruce Wayne. Yeah. This is his first time working with Bruce Wayne as Batman, and it is awesome. From the first issue you pick up, you're like, hells yes. Like, it starts off... I mean, it's been event after event after event for Batman, and I mean, that's...
For the most part, yeah.
I mean, it's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing, but it's not a, like...
You kind of wish that Scott Snyder would just take a breather and just do some typical mystery issues as opposed to event after event, because we had Court of Owls at first, Death of the Family finished up. We're having a breather now, but then we're going to be going into Zero Year. Yeah. Which we'll talk about later.
I would actually have to use that to argue for why Batman and Robin is a good read.
Yeah.
Because the regular standalone Batman series is event after event, Batman and Robin kind of gives you that breather every month, especially since it usually comes out the same day as Batman. Except since Damian died now.
Yeah,
now it's just
after Damian died now. We don't know.
Who knows? Next issue is Batman in the Red Hood, I think it is, because last one was Red Robin. So, but if you're not picking up Batman, what the hell are you doing reading comics? Like this is one of those series that you're like, what? This is the comic you read if you're reading comics, and you got to pick it up. Another series that I feel has gotten better because Jeff Lemire joined it is Justice League Dark. He started with issue number 9. I read a little bit of what happened before number 9.
I couldn't even get through issue 1.
It was forgetful, to say the least.
Yeah.
But then Jeff Lemire comes in and he immediately starts with this Frost plot line, and then goes right into this Magic World plot line, and then it just keeps going. It's awesome. Like, Jeff Lemire brought a lot of characterization, a lot of cool panel design, and I mean, it makes John Constantine hilarious. And I mean, he's the one who took over the Constantine title right after this, after writing Justice League Dark. So, I mean, that just proves for you that he did so well here with the character that he just gets the full series for it.
Yeah.
I mean, anything to say?
Justice League Dark is better than the actual Justice League book.
That is the reason why Justice League Dark is in this pile and not Justice League. Because the Justice League book, most of the time, will fall on its face and be slightly awful. Justice League Dark, always good. No matter what happens. It doesn't even have a backup. Like, it's not a longer issue or anything like the Justice League is, but it's still better for $1 less. Save money. Read Justice League Dark.
Yeah, definitely.
Agreed.
So next up, Aquaman, number 1.
And we already know what you're thinking.
It's Aquaman, you're thinking. But you know what? It's Aquaman.
Now, guys, this is April now? We're filming this in April. So what everyone is thinking now is not, oh, it's Aquaman. They're thinking Aquaman got mad sharks.
Mad sharks. Yeah, that is the best part of Aquaman, is that New 52 started off making Aquaman kick ass. Injustice really sealed the deal this month of putting it out.
Yeah, it's nice to bring Aquaman back into the fold and kind of show the general public that he hasn't been as lame as everyone thinks he is for like decades now.
Yeah.
So it's nice that people finally realize that. And I like that this comic is kind of self-aware.
Definitely.
Like Aquaman going into a restaurant, ordering seafood, and everyone at the restaurant starts freaking out.
Yeah, they're like, "What? Wait, did he just order seafood? Can he do that?" Like, and
is that cannibalism?
And everyone makes fun of Aquaman in this comic, which is great. Like, there's several issues where people come up to Aquaman and they make fun of him for stuff, and you're like, but then of course Aquaman shows him that's not
the case
not
at
me
all. Yeah.
Like, I mean, Aquaman's impervious. Like, he's got stronger skin than Superman.
Because he has Atlantean skin. He has super strength. He can
got
withstand great pressures.
Trident.
Yeah.
He can not talk to animals, control animals. Now, that's an important distinction, everyone. He doesn't talk to the dolphins. He uses sharks to bite your head off. Or giant squids.
Yes, this isn't a social hour.
Yeah, exactly.
I would say, I mean, if you're not, you got to read Aquaman. I mean, the first arc is not as strong as the rest of it, but I mean, the first arc shows how badass.
It's still a consistently good series.
Yeah, definitely.
It is in the upper echelon of the New 52.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, the Throne of Atlantis storyline was my favorite storyline of the entire year. And I would,
despite it destroying our hometown.
Yeah, I mean, he
no, that was the
Boston.
best. That was the best part.
Yeah, that like said he flooded Boston. I was so excited when.
I wish we got a panel where the green line was just destroyed. That would have been amazing.
I would have loved that. Speaking of things that are green, another series that Jeff Lemire took over.
Fanboy.
Yes, I am a little bit fanboying. Jeff Lemire took over Green Arrow at issue 17. He's now 3 issues in, and. Wow. Like, he didn't like reboot the character. He took what was happening and then destroyed the character's life. And then just...
It's essentially like if someone had a painting that was already done, he just splashed white paint on it so he could paint something else over it.
And thank God, because I read what was happening before in Green Arrow, and it's so lame. Like, they were just like, oh, he can fight all these supervillains, and you were like, shut up. And then they finally have a nemesis for Green Arrow and to deal with his past. Well, really his father's past. And I mean, I think they're doing a great job with introducing a new cast. There's some amazing art in this. I love this series.
I would say I like this series so much just for what we've had so far that it makes me wish that the Arrow TV show was more like the book, more like this book.
And I'm not saying the Arrow TV show's bad.
Yeah, I don't think it's bad. I would love it if it was more like this. And we're only like 3 issues in.
Yeah, definitely.
I started Green Arrow when the New 52 picked up first. And as you were saying, it was pretty bad. So I haven't had the willpower to give it another shot, even with Lemire.
It's worth it. It's definitely worth it. Just the villain alone makes it work in the art. So next up is one of the newest additions to New 52 that I'm saying you have to pick up to get the next event comic that's coming for DC called Trinity War. You have to pick up Justice League of America. Now, I got the Massachusetts cover because, I guess Boston strong. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
But, I mean, this is a very cool series because it's bringing together some of the superheroes you wouldn't expect.
Again, it's ironic how every other team book besides Justice League is better than Justice League.
Yes, it's true. And you're going to have to read this because the next Trinity War event is based off the idea that Justice League Dark, Justice League of America, and Justice League are all going to fight each other. Which, I mean, sounds like a stupid idea, but if you're reading Justice League Dark and Justice League America, you understand this is going to be kind of awesome. especially because Justice League of America, the reason why they were made was to fight the Justice League. They're specifically formatted to be able to take down the Justice League. And I think that's extremely interesting.
Well, that and America.
And America. Yeah, it's very cool to see a Justice League that's completely controlled by the government.
Yeah, just dedicated to this country.
I mean, it's a little selfish of us, but...
We have other Justice League teams. We had Justice League International, but they're gone now.
we don't like to talk about that.
Yeah, Booster Gold's now in like All-Star Western.
I guess.
Maybe. I don't know. So any other titles you'd want to add to this list?
Swamp Thing.
Swamp Thing.
Swamp Thing, written by Scott Snyder, same writer as Batman. Great stuff. He just left. Thankfully, the artist who's taken over for him, artist and writer, have both been good so far. We've only had one issue.
Yeah.
It's been good.
Yeah, so I'm excited to see more, but I mean, if you are going to pick up some trade paperback soon, pick up the Swamp Thing trade paperback. It's
it's a lot like Animal Man, very violent. It tends to have more action than Animal Man does.
But it's absolutely beautiful.
They're both similar books because Snyder and Lemire were both working together on these.
Yeah.
And in the Rot World event, they both cross over. So
it's quite cool.
They both tied in.
Do you read Swamp Thing?
I have read up until Rot World.
Again, to the Rot World intersection.
Rot World.
You know that's what you're missing?
That's when shit gets
I was
real.
going to use Boston Comic Con as an excuse to pick all of them up.
Yeah, but then it got pushed back.
Wah, wah, wah.
But another thing we would like to add, because I know this is another one of your books, Demon Knights.
Demon Knights is a fantasy book that takes place in the Dark Ages, and it's always fun and hilarious and extremely violent. It's very it's just fun. It's of all the books that I read for the New 52, I always have the most fun reading Demon Knights. Just pure fantasy.
Another team book that is better than Justice League. I mean, that's the third book we brought up that's better than Justice League. But
we could also toss Earth 2 into there.
Yeah,
Earth 2 is a book written to take Golden Age characters such as the original Green Lantern and original Flash, Alan Scott, and Jay Garrick, and reinvent them for the New 52 reboot.
Yeah, and I mean, it works. I think it extremely works. Earth 2 and...
I'm just glad that they actually decided to do something with those characters instead of, now that we've rebooted, they just don't exist anymore.
Yeah, at least they didn't just kill them off.
Yeah.
Better team dynamic than Justice League.
Of course. And they're not even a team yet. Like, they're just still...
It's still forming.
Yeah, they're still
around.
forming.
But, so that's it for this New 52/Marvel Now segment. I want to thank you guys for viewing this for us, and I hope you guys pick up these comics so that way you guys can listen to our podcast and understand what we're talking about. But
because we're not going to explain it.
Not at all.
No spoilers on this show.
Not at all. So thank you guys again, and thanks for tuning in. So that's a cut. Now we can go to the Batman origin story.